our guests are Sanur Ba'aba Heru Ankh Ra Semaj Se Ptah Abu Tepi Shrine of Ptah.
Taboo.
Grandmaster Heru Amin Kepra Kekui Kham, Shrine of Kepra. Infudishi Jehutimas Ka'un Heru El Salim, Shrine of Black Gold Jehuti Heru Neb Hu Per Ankh.
Well done.
Tonight our topic is about changes. Today we see the world faced with many challenges in every level of life, humans, animals, water, etc. We want to discuss a few of those things in reference to the deities and many other things dealing with our ancestors. We want to first start off with a prayer from the Grandmaster Kham.
A prayer is an invocation. We first must understand that, as I have said and we all say, spirit is very, very real. But I want to quote my mother at this time, who has had her transition, who introduced me to the ministry 55 years ago. And her statement was, pray, but make sure it goes higher than the ceiling. And that means you're speaking to someone. We're clear that we're not just saying words for form or fashion or because they sound nice. An invocation is speaking to someone. And so when you hear me say Ur, Natur, or somebody say Nature or Natur, what we're saying is the all, the one, the most high, all of those expressions. And then all other entities, and you use the word deity, and that has a Latin derivation, but that's okay. You mean what the same. So we'll understand that. That's who we'll call to be present. Specifically, I want to honor Baba Heru, I'll refer to him, who is my acknowledged spiritual father in this Kemetic order. Some almost 20 years now. And I note 55 years in the ministry for myself since 1958. So when I speak, I'm not just speaking words, I'm calling on something that I do daily on a very, very personal basis. I also want to recognize Infundishi, which is the equivalent of saying Grandmaster. And he has earned that because he has ascended to that level and he continues to ascend. So those are the physical manifestations that I want to ask for guidance, and including myself, of course, that all of our words be in balance, all of our thoughts be in balance, remembering that, yes, it is for ourselves, but it's for those who are watching, that the communication be clear that this is a way of life and not a religion. With that in mind, I'd like to do, and I will do, an invocation to the Most High, that the Most High, Mother, Father, choose to be present, because you cannot force spirit to be present. But I will do that invocation. We'll just close our eyes. I'll do that. Nisharak Unatur, it is to you that we humbly ask to approach. As I've stated and you know so well, this is not for form or fashion. But your humble servants that are seated here have walked this path for decades. Each of us in our manner and each of us in our station have held ourselves accountable before you, and each of us in our stations have chosen to defend ourselves against seen and unseen forces, and therefore we are immune to opinions and thoughts. Yet we are humble and grateful to be able to gather for the education of those who would like to know what this way of life might entail. With that, we ask for the protection of the four protective guardians. Tahuti, it is your name, and we ask you to come forth in your baboon form to protect us from head to toe, that nothing should overwhelm us. Kepra, in your scarab form, we ask you to come forth, that our words are transformed, that our words are heartfelt, but for the education of those, may they also be transformed in what they do not know and need to know without arrogance. To you, Ampu, some would pronounce your name as Impu, and of course the vowels being left out, we asked you in your jackal form to come forth, to allow the information to be first ingested and then digested. We are grateful. To you, Kansu, in your child form, let us speak plainly as a child might. Childlike, but not childish, so that all, including children, may understand our words. In the name of all the guardians that you have produced, we are grateful. And to our ancestors who walked this path before us, as they have said, and we now stand as the physical manifestation of millions of years, not in a time past, but in a present time, and look forward to a future time. May it be so to our turn. Amen.
Let's start off with the discussion. After that, those beautiful thoughts. We want to start off with a question in reference to changes. Has humankind disrespected the deities? And if so, what is the aftermath of these actions?
To begin, here at the studio of Ptah, I'd like to invoke the name Sekhmet Neferatum, and to give honor and praise to Imhotep, who embodied in human form those aspects of the material. Your question, that is a very powerful question you just asked. And how repeat that one more time.
Has humankind disrespected the deities? And
Okay.
if so, what is the aftermath of these actions?
Humankind disrespecting the deities. The truth is that humankind has always known of the various aspects and manifestation of that one all divine, whom we refer to in Smite Tawi as Nqara, the great divinity, all-encompassing, genderless yet genderful. And those who call themselves monotheists have chosen to willfully misunderstand the process of African thought. They, in their vanity, presume to approach divinity face to face, whereas in our ancient culture, we always approach divinity through its various aspects, which they refer to as animism, in a way of saying that everything is animated, and it's true, animated by spirit, that is true. But they choose to willfully refer to us as polytheists, and they, of course, are the great monotheists, so therefore their concept of divinity is greater than ours. But even one of their Egyptologists, name of Mr. Wallace Budge, admitted that the ancient Kemetic people, miscalled Egyptian today, always worship a one divine, when he was speaking in the name of Amun-Ra. And so even he admitted that this was indeed an African culture. But because things African have always been put down by the planetary freshmen, they have chosen willfully to broadcast that we were polytheists and we were worshippers of, quote, many gods, and therefore they have a better idea. When the fact is that their prophets would not have gotten anything had it not been for the committed people of the Nile Valley, Abraham, Moses, Yeshua, the Muslims likewise, who came to the Emperor Negus of Kush to be rescued from his own barbaric tribesmen, the Quraysh of Mecca. So yes, there has been disrespect of the mothers and fathers of spirituality in the world, from which all these religions have descended.
Dua and excellently, delivered. I also want to add that not only is it disrespect, but in some cases, our modern day people is just totally ignorance. The Necharu are also principles and laws that govern the cosmos, govern the universe. And so as long as you remain ignorant of these laws, then these laws will dictate and be able to have power over you. But once you understand the law, now you can flow with the law. I make it very clear that the Necharu are not gods and goddesses like the Europeans, Egyptologists like to speak of. And many of our people have been miseducated to that. But they are principles. It's like gravity. Gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. It is a force. It doesn't care if you're black, white, tall, fat, short, skinny, got a degree, no degree. It proportionately affects all of us the same. And these principles and laws are the same. So it's important for us to understand these laws and to be educated. So I think one of the great crimes is that the masses have been miseducated and are ignorant of these principles and laws. But yes, there are many who are just abusing it.
Yeah, I'd like to just chime in that at a different vantage point. The vantage point that, as it was indicated, gravity is a principle, accepted that the spirits, Interu, those spirit forces, are also impervious to human behavior, whatever you should choose to do. And I guide, belief is not a prerequisite, and ignorance of the law does not matter. The consequences will be the consequences. And the example that I like to use is free will. You do whatever you want to do. I don't believe that. Well, okay. That has nothing to do with the fact. The fact is, the way I guide it is, you can come to any intersection where there's heavy traffic. You can choose by free will to enter that intersection while traffic is flowing. You could do that. That's your free will to do it. There is a possibility that you will make it. There is a probability that you will not. If you are successful the first time, returning, the probability increases that you will not. It still remains your free will. So in answer to the question, has mankind disrespected those spirits, deities, as you said? Very likely. From my perspective, it's irrelevant. It's not my choice. And yes, I understand and totally accept that, of course, from many studies, all life began on the continent of Africa. But I didn't need someone to tell me that. I didn't need someone to spend $3 billion to trace DNA to tell me that. I understood that. And understanding that someone else's disrespect is theirs. I guide by example. I do what I do. I'm not trying to convince you. And I've said to people, after 55 years of formal ministry since June 29, 1958, I'm just a grumpy old man. I'm not particularly interested in your opinion, one way or the other. That's not arrogant, and it's not intended to seem that way. Once you go to spirit as you understand it, then the rest, again, as I said, prerequisite of your acceptance or non-acceptance is truly irrelevant. That's how I answer that. So the consequences are those that you bring upon yourself. That's how
So would you say that's similar to what they call the laws of nature?
Well, the laws of nature. See, once you say that, then you've narrowed it. Let's. I don't want to get caught in semantics, but I would say the principles. Let's stick with the principles. Laws come in and out of fashion,
Right.
and no longer apply,
Right.
and need to be refreshed. Principles were, are, and will be. So yeah, if you go against a principle, at whatever stage, if you went in the past, it ain't gonna change.
Right.
If you did this morning, it's not gonna change. And if you choose to do it tomorrow, it's not gonna change. So I prefer principles.
Also, let me add that, for instance, you ask, have mankind disrespected the deific forces or principles? Yes, they have. For instance, Nut, the Divine Mother, whom we refer to as space, has been assaulted and raped with all of these missiles being pushed up into her belly. Just the other day I heard that one fell in some field in Russia, and they're falling into the Atlantic or into the oceans. Yes, the oceans have been disrespected. They too are neteru. Yes, the very air that we breathe has been disrespected. Shu has been disrespected. And of course, as Grandmaster would say, and Mvadishi I'm sure will agree, you mess with the neteru, you will pay the consequences, as we are now experiencing. Last week was very hot, wasn't it? It's going to get hotter still.
That flows into the next question. Who are the deities, and what does deity mean? You guys touched upon it, but just do a little more.
Let me just